one simple move, the beautiful underfigure of 8, and we're going to call upon the elements of nature so that if we're a dancer, it's going to really spice up our dancing. But it's also a really beautiful way to tap into our femininity and different aspects of ourselves. So for instance, we might be pulling in the earth energy, we might be feeling juicy and womanly and grounded. We might be tapping into the ocean, and then we're feeling fluid, liquid, sensual, able to go with the flow, soft. Maybe we're tapping into the air. When we're tapping into the air, we feel ethereal, like a princess, just lifted and inspired. Or maybe it's the fire. This is when it gets really exciting. This is when we tap into our passion and we really allow ourselves to rewild, to just express ourselves and be very fiery. So there's so much here for us just to have fun with and play with. And what's really great is we're just using one simple move and just calling in the different qualities of nature into our dance.
Let's begin by tapping into earth energy. So start with your feet in parallel, hip width apart. Bend your knees a couple of inches and allow your weight to be right back over your heels. Imagine you're perching on a little stool. This will leave your hips free to move up and down. Feel every part of your feet connecting with the earth. Now drop the left hip down, stretch it out as far as it will go, and then scoop it in towards your centre. Allow it to shoot diagonally down and across to your right hip. I'm going to try that again. So the left hip drops down to the earth, stretch it out, and then scoop it back into the body, shoot it diagonally down towards your right hip. Now let's try that with both hips. Drop the left hip down, stretch it out, scoop it back in and shoot it diagonally down to the right. Right hip drops, stretches out and scoops into the centre and diagonally across. We want the move to be centred in the hips, so it's a good idea to hold the top half of the body relatively still. Try looking in the top half of the body with a pretty arm frame, such as holding your hair. Now my little friend here on the screen is reminding you of the direction of the flow. So it goes down, out, in, diagonally across, down, out, in, diagonally across. Now begin to let the move be a continuous flowing infinity loop in the hips. Imagine scoops attached to your hips, scooping up earth energy from the ground and bringing it in towards your centre. There's no forward and back, only up and down. Feel yourself developing a strong root system coming up through your feet. Notice the juicy power of your hips, pelvis and belly as you push down into the ground and you let the energy of the earth flow through you, giving you nourishment, stillness and a strong centre. Bend your knees, weight back on the heels, and feel free to lift your heels off with the move to give your hips a little more leverage if that feels easier. Breathe deeply and slowly and feel all the energy drop into your belly and hips and down into the earth. Grounding like this can really stop our energy from being depleted or scattered. We come home to ourselves. Tap into the unlimited source of energy from Mother Earth. Allow power to flow through you, not out of you. Draw on the calm vitality of the earth. Let's play with air energy now. Let's set it up with a pretty hand movement. Palms face in towards each other. One wrist leads and the other follows. Hands and fingers are loose and free like shoots of grass being swayed by the ebb and flow of the air. Take your hands up and move them softly through the air. put a small figure of 8 movement underneath the arm movement. This is a much tighter, smaller, subtler hip movement. Your torso is lifted and your weight comes forward over the balls of the feet. Air is about the sky, the clouds, flights of fancy, flights of the imagination, flights of inspiration. Reach out and receive this playful, joyful energy. Air is a light energy. Think birds, butterflies, fairies. Breathe in new ideas, inspiration, ingenuity, and breathe out the old. You're now ready to connect to the energy of the ocean, allowing the figure of 8 to flow through the whole of our body. Our figure of 8 is no longer contained just in our hips, but it's moving throughout the body, creating a continuous, sinewy, sensuous S shape. Weight is evenly distributed throughout your feet, although if it's still easier for you, do feel free to lift off your heels. Chest and upper torso lean away from the hips, creating a serpentine S shape. Notice how as you perform the figure of 8 with the hips, there's a natural counter movement in the chest and upper torso. Now you may find this happens quite naturally if you don't overthink it. To break down the chest movement, lift the chest to the left and then drop it down the middle. Lift to the right and then drop it down the middle. Lift to the left and then sink down. Lift to the right and sink down. The most important part of this is the lift. The diagonal chest lift leads the movement, so don't get too hung up on creating the perfect figure of 8 here. It's the lift that gives the movement that fluid serpentine feel. Now practice flowing like water, allowing the chest and the hips to move in opposition. Feel free to add in level changes to increase the sinuous look and the feel of your S shape. Bring energy to your arms and hands by imagining them moving through the ocean and resisting the current of the water. Feel the sensuality of your body as you move with liquid fluidity. Be sensuous. Don't you just relish being in the flow, being receptive, spiralling and swirling around challenges, taking the path of least resistance, allowing your nervous system to fully relax? No need to force, strain or resist. You cascade, you glide, you roll. Allow yourself to take full pleasure in this luxurious feminine flow. Now, if the arms feel a little bit much at this stage, feel free to lock them into a pose such as lifting your hair. So notice how I allow myself to frequently bend my knees, letting the movement flow from plie into standing, making that curved S shape more dramatic. Let's go to fire. This time, take your feet wider than hip distance apart. We are going to break all the rules, so it's perfectly okay, say if your feet are angled out. And you can just feel free to experiment by bending your knees, changing the speed of the movement, changing your foot position. Just about anything goes here. Fire is about spontaneous movement. Don't overthink it. Yes, you could say perform the movement to one side. How does it feel? Just moving one hip at a time. You could try taking your hips behind your heels. Give yourself a bit of a tail feather to shake. Alternatively, do the opposite and bring your hips in front of your toes. You could move your hips from front to the back. You could add in some fiery arms. So the point is just to be expressive here. Dance from the heart. Feel free. Enjoy the movement. Switch up the speed. Experiment with levels. Just do what comes naturally. The key is to be very loose and free. So give yourself a bit of a shakedown to release any tension. Fire is an element of change, spontaneity and emotion. It is powerful, passionate and all-consuming. It connects us to the emotions of our hearts without censoring them. Burn away fear, burn away the past, burn away limitations. Discover the inner passion, courage and willpower that have been there all along. Fire symbolises wild freedom, runaway energy. We're no longer living in fear, but burning with love and passion. We light the fire of our desires and then we run with them. So please do like this video if it resonated with you, and do subscribe because we've got loads more great free content coming up.